Okay, so the point of this video is to give a really thorough overview of demand, the demand curve, the law of demand, the idea of holding all other things equal, and then things that cause demand to shift. And then we'll do the same thing for supply, and then we'll get into putting the two together and some examples, and that should just about do it. Okay, so the law of demand is really the starting point for this entire discussion. And what it is it just states that all other things equal, and this is really important, and it's so important, in fact, that economists also refer to it by its Latin name, which is ceteris paribus. So these two things are exactly the same. Ceteris paribus means all other things equal, and in Latin, and all other things equal is ceteris paribus in English. Okay, so consumers will want to buy more of a good. So you want to buy more of a good at lower prices. So if price goes down, what this says is that if price goes down, then that makes, and this little arrow over here means then quantity will go up. So if things are cheaper, you buy more of it, and then the reverse of that is that you will buy less of it at higher prices. So if price goes up, then quantity will go down. And so this creates the downward slope of the demand line. So here I drew the start of a demand curve, and I just labeled the y-axis price and the x-axis Q for quantity. And then I titled it demand for apples. So let's say that apples are $5 an apple. Really, no one is going to want to buy apples. That's the honest truth, is that at $5 an apple, you probably have better options than to buy an apple. So quantity at that point will be 0. Now if apples are $3 an apple, that seems a little overpriced, but it doesn't seem too overpriced. So let's say then that, I don't know what market we're talking about, let's just talk about the market for the United States. So if it's $3 an apple, then maybe 20 million apples will be purchased. So we'll just put 20 down here for 20 million. And then at $1 an apple, and again, that would probably be 20 million apples like a day, for example. And then at $1 an apple, that seems super cheap. So every single person that goes to the supermarket will probably say, oh, you know what, I'll go buy apples today. They're on sale or something like that. So at $1 an apple, then we get, let's say this is 40 million. And so this, when you connect these dots, this gives you, and you connect them a little bit better than that, this gives you this downward sloping line that we label demand. So I'm going to call this point here point A, and this point B, to kind of help us farther down the road. Okay, so demand is a relationship between price and quantity, holding all other things equal. So if you change anything besides price or quantity, the demand curve will move, and this is called a shift in demand. But if you change price or quantity, you will move along the same demand curve. So that's exactly what we were just talking about right here from point A and point B, is we're changing price. So if the price of apples goes from $3 to $1, you will go on the same demand curve, the same line, you'll go from point A to point B because price changed. Now, if you wanted to change quantity, let's say flip-flop this around, that you're trying to decide how many apples you want to sell today. And you say, okay, we want to sell 20 million apples today. Let's say you own a grocery store that's all over the US. Well, we sold 40 million yesterday and they were $1 an apple, so we should probably raise the price to $3 an apple, and that will let us sell 20 million apples today. So that would be going from point B to point A by changing price. So again, this is just showing the relationship between price and quantity. Okay, so then the last, well, not the last thing, but another thing is that, oh, I already said this, is that if the entire demand curve moves, this is called a shift in demand. And then if you move along the same demand curve, this is called a change in quantity demanded. So from point B to point A, this is a change in quantity demanded. And then let's say that the entire curve moves from, so let's say from this yellow line to this green line, and that would be D1, that would be, so from D to D1, that would be a change in demand. Or we also say a shift in demand. Okay, so you know that a change in demand is going to be caused by something shifting, something changing, besides price or quantity. So what are common things that cause demand to shift besides price or quantity? And I made a list for you here. So a change in preferences, this would just be like if for all of a sudden we found out that apples are, let's say that there's a chemical in apples that gives you cancer. So if that were discovered, that would cause a lot less people to buy apples. In fact, that would probably cause the demand to shift from up here to like all the way down here, where practically no one buys apples even if they're, 2 cents. So that's a change in preferences. Then there's a change in the price of a complementary good and a change in the price of a substitute good. And I've done videos on each of those separately just because I think that they're big enough concepts to warrant their own videos. And I've also done a video on what happens with a change in income for normal or inferior goods. So you need to know what a complementary good is, what a substitute good is, what a normal good is, and what an inferior good is. And there are all separate videos on these if you don't remember, and so I'm not going to talk about them here. And then other things that cause demand to shift are a change in expected future prices. So this just works like this. If you think that prices will be higher in the future, so if I'm running out of room, so I'm going to go scroll down a little bit. So if prices are higher in the future, if you think prices are going up, go up in the future, then you'll buy more today. So let's say like a common thing with this is that, like, let's talk about ski season. So in the summer, ski gear is always on sale. It's always super cheap. And so a lot of people will buy more ski stuff in the summer because they know in the winter that prices are going to go up. You're going to buy more today, which will then lead to an increase in demand. Increase in demand. And then flip-flop this, if prices are going down in the future, if you think things will be cheaper later, you'll wait to buy them, so you'll buy less today. So you'll buy less today, and that will be a decrease in demand. And then also just a change in seasonal demand. Like let's say that we're talking about the demand for firewood, or even better, talk about the demand for natural gas, which is what's used to heat homes. So obviously the demand for natural gas goes up in the winter because it's colder, or it goes down in the summer because it's hotter. So that's all that there is with a change in seasonal demand. So with all of those things said, I don't think I'm going to cover any more on demand. We'll do another video on supply and demand together, and then from there we'll go on to a bunch of examples. And there will also be a video coming up on supply.